Hey, I'm Keith Spiro from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. My guest this week on Let's Talk is artist James Michalopoulos. James, you paint a lot of buildings, you paint a lot of musicians, you also paint the occasional cow. How is a cow as sitting for a painting? Are they patient?
They are sometimes dismissive and critical. They're irritated or whatever. You just treat them delicately and move on.
We'll have those and other insights on painting difficult subjects from James Michalopoulos this week on Let's Talk.
We're local and enlightening. You're watching WLAE-TV, celebrating 40 years of New Orleans public television.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we do what we always do. We'll cover all the home teams. Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans. To break it down, two of the best we have in the city. Lenny Vangilder of CrescentCitySports.com and 106.7 The Ticket. And Meagan Glover of WGNO-TV, Channel 26 Sports. Her first start time on the program. Guys, welcome to the show. Good to have you, Meagan, on your first time here.
Happy to be here.
Before we get started, we'll hear a little bit from Meagan and Lenny, a little bit about what they're doing, what's going on with their stations and their publications. We'll start with you, Meagan. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How long you been in New Orleans? How long you been at Channel 26? And tell us a little bit about where you came from as well.
Yeah. So first off, thank you for having me. Again, my name is Meagan. I am originally from Shreveport, and I came here from Lafayette. I spent about a total of 5 years in Lafayette, but for 3 in most recent time, and I've been with Channel 26 for over a year now. Right. So, just loving all things New Orleans. The thing about Lafayette is that I was always here, so yes. I guess it was always a matter of time before I would be actually settled. So, yeah.
Right. And in Shreveport, went to what school?
I went to Captain Shreve.
And the greatest producer on the planet went to Bird, so a little bit of a rivalry there?
Definitely, a little bit of a rivalry
there. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about all the programming over at Channel 26. Y'all got a lot of stuff going on between high school sports. Y'all are the home for SEC. Tell us all about it.
Yep. Of course, we have our Friday Night Football show that we do every week. It starts at 11 o'clock, and it is an hour-long show. So, of course, you can catch those highlights and everything on the show and on WGNO.com later. And we preview our game of the week. We have our Scholar of the Week. We have our our Game of the Week, Player of the Week as well. And then we do have the SEC show now that ABC carries the SEC game. So a lot of the times you'll catch me and Jerry Paul Joseph at whatever home games for LSU. He's actually traveling this week for the Vandy game. And yeah, have all those premier shows.
Sounds good. And of course, Sports Zone.
And of course, Sports Zone.
One of my favorites, always as well. Thank you for joining us today on the program. Lenny, you got a long list of things what you guys are doing over at Crescent City Sports, 106.7. Again, tell us all about it.
Let's start on the radio side first of all. My partner in crime, Ken Trahan, and the original Prep Football Report every Friday night, 6 to midnight, the last hour of which is Friday Night Football. Right. But it's if you're out and about on a Friday night, it's the place to be to keep up with everything going on in Louisiana high school football. There's reporters as many as 50 games around the state. The scoreboard from Crescent City Sports as well. No better place to get your scores every Friday night. And I'm usually at a game like I will be this Friday night. We've got an intriguing matchup Friday night on Crescent City Sports. St. Charles Catholic is welcoming in the Legacy School of Sports Sciences from Spring, Texas. And I'm sure you're like, I've never heard of them. I hadn't heard much about them either. But I will tell you that they have a quarterback by the name of Dyshawn Henderson, who is rated the #2 player in America by 247 Sports. And talking to Robert Valdez at St. Aug, who played them earlier this year, talking to Wayne Stein this week at St. Charles Catholic, he is the real deal. He's committed to the University of Houston, and Willie Fritz, I'm sure, is going to be glad to have this young man, and I'm looking forward to seeing him Friday night out at St. Charles Catholic. And you can watch it on Crescent City Sports, or part of our new deal, you can watch it live on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network as well.
Of course, always free on CrescentCitySports.com, and of course, Lenny doing a great job of not just writing for them, but also again calling games as well. And of course, nobody does high school football better than again WGNO and Crescent City Sports. Again, they have held that baton for a long time. All right, guys, let's get started. All right, here we go. Saints lose to the Patriots 25-16. They're 1-5 now in the season. They're at Chicago on Sunday. Your thoughts on the season as we get started here? Again, again, a lot of expectations were that this was not going to be a team that was going to go to the playoffs. But again, your thoughts on this season so early?
I want to stick with the expectations because this is no slight or no shade to the organization, but I don't believe there was really high expectations to begin with. It was just so much newness to it. You got a new coach, you got a new quarterback, or you have not necessarily maybe a new quarterback, but a new starting quarterback per se. You have all these new pieces. You got a new lineman in Kelvin Banks, and of course the battle between Chuck and Rattler that went on in the offseason. It wasn't like you said, it's not like you expected the Saints to be a playoff team. Right. But it was, where do they move the needle per se? And so for them to sit at 1-5, it is unfortunate. It's not really too much of a surprise. This was not a 10-win team going into, especially unfortunately, considering the easy schedule that they have. But does it surprise me? Not necessarily. It's just a matter of, we'll see. Yeah. We'll just wait and see.
Right. Lenny, so far your thoughts? Is this how you thought it would go?
Pretty close to it. I mean, it's hard to predict the NFL at times. I mean, there's going to be teams that are really good that you think we're going to be in. There are going to be teams that are going in the other direction. Maybe so. There's a lot of parity, and there's not. Look, how far are the Saints away from being maybe 4-2 right now? Okay, or even 5-1. Seattle, forget about it. Right. Buffalo, they're an official's review away from having a fourth quarter lead. The other games here at home, you'll win one of them, and the other three, you've got a chance to take the lead in the fourth quarter. So you're in position in 5 of these 6 games. Now you've only won one of them, and I think a lot of that comes with experience. Just those tiny margins that you have in the NFL. It's not college football where that game in Seattle is definitely the exception rather than the norm of what you see in the NFL of just somebody getting their doors blown off out there. It doesn't happen. So the margins are there. It's being able to learn from that. And again, when you've got a team without a lot of experience, particularly quarterback and some other key spots, and obviously a new coaching staff as well, those things, it's going to take some time. I think we've seen you got to look at things. I think. At least from this year on an individual basis, what kind of individual performances are you seeing out there? I think at some spots you're seeing some really good ones. At some other spots, maybe not what you expected, but we're also getting a chance at different times to see some younger guys and see exactly what it is you have to see, where you're going to go in 2026 and beyond. What are the needs to fill in to make this team, take one more step, and then that next step, and then that next step.
Rattler said this weekend that he thought that the team was better than their record. Do you agree with that?
I believe for him specifically, yes. The team can be better than their record, and to Lenny's point, they've just not been able to capitalize on mistakes or even, on opportunities or even make opportunities. When you look at the game against that they won, the Giants game, created some turnovers, right? That team is going to have to lean on making the other team rattle, no pun intended, to pick off some wins there. I believe in Rattler's case specifically, he's been playing better for sure, but it's unfortunate that his play has been overshadowed by the losses, and he's just not getting the help necessary to pull off those wins from his offense.
Right. Do you agree with Rattler?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that jumped out to me is you start digging into numbers. Saints have only 4 giveaways this year, 6 games. Now, I think a lot of numbers are down in the NFL. If you go back and look at numbers in the 70s and the 80s, I went down a YouTube rabbit hole a couple of weeks ago and found the Saints Raiders Monday Night Football game in 1979, which I know.
Did you watch that game?
Well, it just makes you cringe, right? Just thinking about it, right? It's one of those games as an old Saints fan going back to 1967, right? It's one of those nights that we saw for 30 plus years. It's just every time you think something good's going to happen, Lucy pulls the football
the
away
other
from
shoe
Charlie
drops,
Brown, right? Exactly. But you look at the numbers that I remember looking at the quarterbacks numbers that night. I mean, Archie Manning was the NFC Offensive Player of the Year that year. Okay, and he had more interceptions than touchdowns. Okay, Kenny Stabler, obviously a Super Bowl winning quarterback, always now Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. And same thing. I mean, now it's a different game. It's right now we're going into week 7 here. Only 5 teams in the NFL have double-digit giveaways. They value the football.
Sure.
And so it's different than what it used to be. So, but it's important to be able to do that. But it's also important when you get those takeaways out there when they are. And look, an opportunity to get 5 takeaways in one game like they did against the Giants is great, and they won the game. But look at you had the scoop and score. But what did they score? I think they scored 6 points off the other 4 turnovers. You've got to be able to capitalize when you do get those opportunities out there, and they come in other ways. It's not just a fumble or an interception. Maybe it's a missed field goal. Maybe it's a key penalty or something that keeps a drive alive. Those are the kind of things you've got to play. Football with minimal mistakes. I think the Saints have done a good job of that on the offensive side. They've done a great job of moving the football between the 20s, but I think from the 20-yard line on in, you get in the red zone, or 25-yard line on in, that is where it's tough. The field compresses there, and it's tough to be able to do things, and that's where this offense is really kind of bogged down.
Why the red zone issues, in your opinion?
It's really hard to tell because I know that they had the offensive line switches. Everyone wasn't healthy. You got Penning back. Ruiz was out for a second there. And, you got Kelvin Banks. You got a new guy who's still learning on the fly, of course. But I don't know if it's a chemistry thing, a communication thing, or a continuity thing at that point. It's very frustrating to see. Spencer had talked about that just yesterday. It's very frustrating to see how they are able to charge down the field. They get to the 20, but they're not able to come up with any points. And then you send Blake Grupe out there, and he might make the field goal, at this point. So it's very interesting to see. I mean, it was maybe a good thing to see Taysom get that touchdown the other day, especially coming back from injury. It was nice to see maybe, a storyline type situation. But you got Alvin, you got Kendra, you got other guys that are capable of making those plays, Jawan Johnson, and what's the problem? Yeah. And so, I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Your thoughts?
In my mind, at some point, obviously you got to be able to throw the football.
Right.
I think if there's any area that, obviously, Rattler's been solid. And, I like what I've seen. Really, this is the first extended look we've had at Kendre Miller, in his career.
Right.
And we might see more of him, this week with Kamara's, uncertainty.
Right.
So, but the receiving core has got to be better. And we've seen some drops in there, and I think some of that can be on Rattler as well for not putting the ball quite in the right spot in some cases. But other times you've got just flat out drops.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to make plays in tight windows when you get down there, and that's just part of it. That comes with experience, and obviously, look, quarterback is the one that touches the ball every play. Okay, and he's got to be able to make plays down there, and he's got to get help from his receiving core, and I don't think he's gotten a lot of help from his receiving core at this point.
Well, penalties are an issue, right? Okay. As you mentioned, the windows get smaller. Again, then you have to be accurate. He hasn't been accurate on the run. He seems to have to be moving because, again, offensive line having issues at times. And of course, you mentioned it, the problem with, again, receivers that are dropping footballs. And again, in the NFL, it's always been if it hits your hand as a receiver, you catch the football. And again, from Olave all the way down, guys have not been consistent catching the football in the red zone, and they really haven't been able to run the football. Now, hopefully, with Taysom coming on now, it'll give him an opportunity to be able to run the football with more effectiveness inside the red zone. He's been missed.
Right, for sure. And that's why I think it was a good opportunity for the Saints to see that. And I asked Kelvin just the other day, like, hey, I know that during the offseason, during a training camp, y'all talked about this new modern offense that Kellen was, going to put together, and they talked about how much they liked it. So I said, how much did you enjoy seeing Taysom get that, especially in the play design that it was? And he said he liked it. So hopefully seeing that success on that play will, maybe be some sort of pivot to allow them to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to get a little sexy with the play calling. I think they've pulled back on that some too.
Right.
I agree. I think from knowing you've got a fairly inexperienced quarterback, I think there's been some conservatism, if you will, in the play call.
Almost to a fault, in my opinion.
To protect, and game management even, okay? To protect your quarterback, okay? And let's face it, where do we start this conversation? The Saints are 1-5. Do, the chances, while you're going to do everything you can to win football games, are you going to play your entire deck of cards in 2025 knowing what the likely outcome is? If you're, if you're at the poker table and you're playing Texas Hold'em and you get a 2 and a 3, are you going to be in or are you going to be out? Probably going to be out. So do you try to play in that situation? Maybe not. And I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but you can't fault them if that's the reasoning.
Right. And maybe again, a lot of that is, Meagan, as you mentioned, you have an inexperienced quarterback, right? I mean, so maybe you're not given the full offense out there because of that. But also they're getting behind early, and that's one of the things that really has been kind of the big reason why they're 1-5 today. We expected this defense to be better. We expected them to be able to rush the passer more effectively. We know, again, on the back end you've got some young players back there, but again, getting in the hole early with this offense with an inexperienced quarterback, it really has put the Saints behind the 8 ball.
Devon Goshaw talked about this after the loss on Sunday when he was like, one of the coaches said, look, we're playing as if we've already spotted them 14. And when you have that mindset, I think you need to play respective to that. Like, not necessarily don't have that mindset, but like feed off of that energy, if that makes sense. Like if you feel, or if your coaches feel as though y'all are already playing behind the 8 ball, then be proved wrong, And I believe that, yes, that when you're punched in the mouth early and you're not able to respond, and this is not even the teams that really respond in the best fashion, then you have to play against that. And I believe the Saints need to find a way to do that. And I do want to just double back for a quick second because we talked about the penalties. The Saints have gotten better at the penalties.
They have.
They were terrible at the beginning of the season. We're still early on in the season, but ever since the last couple of weeks, they've put up 40 yards worth of penalties. So at least we've seen progression with that.
Which means, again, they're getting more discipline, but also, again, the one thing you want to see is they're listening to their coach, right? I mean, again, at the end of the day, we just look at a very undisciplined team early in the season, and they're getting better. So again, there's some influence from what's going on with the coaching. When does Kellen Moore go with the youth movement? We've seen a little bit of it, right? We've seen it on the back end because of injuries. But at what point do we start seeing Devin Neal and some of the other players on the field getting time, and then eventually, which we'll get into next, will be Rattler versus Shuck. But when do we start seeing that? At what point is it where, again, okay, these young guys got to get on the field so we can see what they are?
Right. I know we were talking about that a little earlier. We saw Stallberg, we saw Stutzman, get in a couple of snaps. I believe that Kellen is going to maybe slowly ease them in, and it might just be more of a game plan against whoever the team is. I mean, like the Bears, the way their defense is playing, I don't know how many other guys we might see. And to your point about, depending on Alvin's injury or, his certainty level. But I believe we're going to slowly see those guys come in, but I believe that is based on who they're playing in the game plan.
Right.
It's easier to do it on defense for this simple reason. A lot of those defensive guys you're talking about up on game day because you got to use more defensive guys on special teams.
Yeah.
So those guys, they're factoring in special teams. So all now you're doing is taking them and bringing them in a little bit at a time in terms of plays from scrimmage. Obviously how many guys can you have active on a given day? What's available? Might we see Neal this week? It's a possibility based on Alvin's situation. That'll probably we'll find out about that later in the week. But if it's if there's this opportunity, there it is. And it's you talk about the Bears defense. That's another kind of hidden storyline in this game. How is Dennis Allen treating this game?
Right.
Sitting on the opposite sideline, is he going to be the guy who is just going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at Spencer Rattler on Sunday?
Yes.
He wants to. He wants to like say, hey, remember me, guys? It's like but. That's one of those things I'm going to be watching for to see just how he goes about things this week.
Based on his history of again being with the Saints, again being a defensive coordinator, whenever there's been a young quarterback, he's taken advantage of that.
Of course.
And of course, he's probably going to try to do that this weekend in Chicago.
For sure. I just want to double back for a quick second. When we talked about the younger guys getting in, we mentioned defensively, but Mason Tipton, we saw a little bit of him on special teams as well. That's a guy that had a really good preseason too.
Yeah.
So.
What do you think? What are your thoughts about Dennis Allen and the defense?
Yeah, he's going to throw the kitchen sink at him for sure. Can you blame him?
And look, he knows this team, so he knows the offense. He knows the tendencies of these players. So he comes in again. He's not blind like again. Some teams are coming in and saying, "Okay, it's a brand new system." Except he knows the players. So there's that. I will say there's one good thing about the defense, and going back to again the ability to make the adjustments on the fly. We're seeing a better defense in the second half than we are in the first half.
Yeah, right. Then to your point about being more disciplined, but then responding too, it's just don't respond so late.
Right.
Let's respond a little early. Let's play against the 14 spot up and make plays early.
Yeah, you think about if you're giving up a couple of 70, 75-yard drives, whatever the case may be, early on, Saints are only allowing 327 yards a game right now. Okay, they're 18th in the league in defense. So if they're doing that early, then that's basically about half of what you're giving up is right there on those first 2-3 possessions, and then you're buckling down. Now, do you do some things differently? You've heard coaches talk about that. Do you go warm up differently to get off to a better start on defense? Do you whatever it is that you're doing, do you change things up? I'd be curious to see if any of those types of things are actually going to take place.
The big talker, it seems all season long, has been Rattler versus Shuck. At what point do we see Shuck again taking snaps for this team? At what point does he take over for Rattler? Obviously, again, Moore seems to be again dead set on behind Rattler. Again, even in his press conferences, he continues to talk about how well he's playing. But at some point, again, you have to see Shuck. Shuck was the 40th overall pick in the draft. He's a second-round pick. Next year, you're probably going to be in the top 5 in terms of, again, your draft position, where, again, you don't want to be chasing a quarterback once again if you don't need one. You have to figure that out. When do you think this happens?
That's so hard to tell because I don't know if do you wait until you get to the middle of the season? Do you wait until you get to the bye and try to figure some things out? Do you kind of sit and see how the record plays out in that? I'm not really sure because, he's talked about like Spencer is our guy, but the results are not resulting.
Right.
I'm not,
He's playing well, but they're not winning.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if you're a quarterback, you've got to produce wins.
And I think like we talked about earlier, not having the help. Of course you got Chris Olave who had those pivotal drops on Sunday, and then you got Shaheed, you got Vele who's new to the system, but I'm not sure when exactly does he pull the plug and let Shuck comes in. Right.
You have a thought?
I don't know that there is a definitive answer. I think it might be you let things run its course. Something comes up, and if there's an injury, now all of a sudden he gets he gets a shot that way. Is it something that's predetermined? Like, is it the bye? Maybe I don't. I think you just got to let Rattler has not played. I mean, the Saints record is 1-5, but Spencer Rattler hasn't played losing football in my mind.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So, and based on that, I don't know why you do want to find out what you have. I don't know what kind of message that sends to go making a change for change's sake in that spot. I don't think you're
message to the fans, a message to the team.
Both. And it's, you still got a locker room of 53 guys plus, your practice squad and everything else that if you do, you don't want to turn it into a divisive situation either where, I like this guy, I like this. No, it's, you've got to be, one team behind one guy. And he hasn't done anything to lose a job at this point. We don't know how the rest of the season is going to run its course, between, play, between the possibility of injuries, whatever the case may be, something may do it. We've seen a lot of quarterback changes in the NFL already this year, but generally they've been because play has warranted that change, or obviously there's been injuries out there. And in a lot of cases, those teams are not faring, particularly with the exception, I guess, the 49ers. They're the only one that's really had to fight. And look what's happened there. Yeah. I mean, in reality, I think you may end up with a situation in San Francisco where they've got a decision to make at some point. As good as Mac Jones has been, replacing Purdy while he's down.
And I know we are finally, past this week, we get into the divisional play.
Yes.
And I don't know if that would play a part in that. I mean, the Saints are last, right now, but it's like everybody else is playing pretty well. I mean, Bryce Young is playing pretty well. Like, you saw the Atlanta game on Monday. I mean, man, they balled out, right? Then, Baker Mayfield is having a heck of a season as well. So I'm not sure if by the time Tampa Bay comes in week 8, how that decision pivots.
Right. I did want to ask you guys what your thoughts on, again, Olave and Rashid. Rashid is an unrestricted free agent now. This is last year under contract. He will be able to negotiate with any team at the end of the season. They picked up the 5th-year option on Olave. It's $15 million plus next year for him on a 1-year deal. Again, he doesn't look like a number 1 receiver. Again, if you're going to, and again, that $15 million is about what you would pay a wide receiver to in today's NFL. Again, your number 1 receivers are making $30-40 million. The question is, again, do they move off of Olave and try to trade him this season and only have to eat maybe $2 to $3 million in dead money, or do they let him play under that $15 million next year, knowing they also have to pay Shaheed as well? Does that $15 million better spent on Shaheed and keeping him in New Orleans, or again keeping Olave, or trying to keep both? Your thoughts?
Ooh, I think maybe. Man, that's such a tough question because obviously Chris has been good at one point in his younger years, but unfortunately he has regressed some. And, I'm not sure if that is whatever it might be going behind the scenes, if it's, due to unfortunate injuries or so. And I don't know if this is like a what have you done for me lately type situation. Lately, it has not been the best. Now, me and Jerry Paul Joseph had talked about this the other day, the fact that Chris Olave actually had 98 yards. But the drop passes are going to, and it's like the 98 yards is not scoring the points. Right. So I think maybe you could still stick with that tandem. But he not getting paid like a number 1 is not, no.
No, he's not worth $40 million, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Generally, I think between now and 3 weeks from now, answer every phone call that comes in, and I'd be making phone calls to see what the market holds. On any of those guys that have that. And my concern with Shaheed is this: his value is not just as a receiver, but as a punt returner.
Right.
And knowing that, can he be your number 1 wide receiver and be your punt returner? I don't know about that, because it's, at that point, you're exposing a guy, that becomes a guy who's basically playing 2 positions. He's doing it now,
right?
But he's not, your wide receiver 1. When do we start doing all of that?
Yeah.
We've got to put a position and a number behind it.
Well, the numbers because of the salary.
Well, no, it's not just that, but it's like you're a starter or you're not. No, this is QB1 or whatever. Don't old school, I guess. Okay, yeah, don't get me wrong, but that's my concern there. But I would look. Everybody who has value. I mean, I saw someone put out there as soon as Fred Warner's unfortunate injury for San Francisco is like, Mickey needs to be calling San Francisco right now and see if they'll take Demario Davis for whatever for a mid-round pick or whatever, just because they're in the hunt. They just lost maybe their best defensive player for the year. So And I think that's the way you've got to think out there. You're not going anywhere this year. If you've got value out there that is of value to someone else, and that can come back in the form of a younger player or picks or some combination thereof, I think you got to do it.
You know, guys, I did a segment on this on the radio show this week. Okay, if Kamara is traded, $28.3 million in dead money. If Demario Davis is traded, $21 million in dead money. If Cam Jordan is traded, $18.7 million in dead money. If you trade Taysom, it's $9.8 million in dead money. Granderson, $24.9 million in dead money. Werner's $2.8 million in dead money. Okay, and again, I didn't even put down ratings because, again, he is what it is. $93 million in dead money this season. Right now, $87 million in dead money for 26 before you get started on the season. That's got to be accounted in this as well. People can say trade your vets, but again, for a team that is just basically almost out of cap hell, again, do you put yourself back in by trading these veterans? On one hand, yes, it's get as many picks as you can, but at the same time, you know that there's a opposite effect to that, and that is again having to eat this dead money on the contract. If you were to trade Olave, again, the team that is picking him up would be responsible for the $15 million next year. Again, all the Saints will be responsible for is about $3 million in dead money. So again, that's part of this equation when you start talking about trading vets. On one hand, yes, they need as many draft picks as they can get, but on the second, again, when you look at it from a monetary standpoint, you got to account for that dead money as well.
I agree, but I mean, we saw it last year with the Lattimore move to the deadline. Now, cornerback is a different position, okay? And at this point, I think the Saints have won that deal, okay? But I think so. That alone tells me that you've got to explore those opportunities when they present themselves between now and November 4th.
Guys, Saints taking on Chicago this week. Meagan, your thoughts?
I think they need to protect the ball for sure. This is a defense that has been playing lights out, and I mean, look, despite the problems that occurred here when Dennis Allen was the head coach here. I mean, look, you can't doubt the fact that he was a good DC for as long as he was here. So the fact that he's putting it all on display at Chicago, the Saints would want to protect the ball. They would want to make plays early. They would want to minimize the penalties, and they would want to capitalize on opportunities.
Yeah. Lenny?
I mean, Chicago's a favorite for a reason. I like what they did on Monday night coming back in that game, and finding a way to win. And now they've got a shorter week. Played a Monday night game on the road. They got to come back. That is probably the one advantage the Saints have in this situation. But it's going to take the Saints' best game of the season to win this game on Sunday.
Guys, I agree with you because again, I thought the same thing last week. Again, when you looked at New England, you looked at Chicago on the schedule early, you figured those are winnable games. But as we're seeing this season kind of unfold, you're seeing both of those teams take the next step, where again the Saints are just not there yet. So again, they almost have to play a perfect game in order to win the game, in my opinion. But and believe me, Dennis Allen's got something for the Saints, and it's not about trying to come back. Again, he just knows this team inside and out, and he's going to exploit the weaknesses.
Right, as he should.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, we'll take a break here. We'll hear from our underwriters. We come back. We'll talk LSU, Tulane, and Pelicans. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Meagan Glover, Lenny Vangilder are our guests. I'm Eric Asher. We'll be right back.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Meagan Glover, Lenny Vangilder, our guest today. All right, let's talk LSU. They beat South Carolina 20-10. They are now 10th ranked in the nation, back in the top 10. They're 5-1, 2-1 in the conference. They take on 17th or /18th ranked, depending on if you follow the AP or the coaches poll, Vanderbilt. And I'll say it again, ranked Vanderbilt. And of course, they are 5-1, 1-1 in the conference. LSU, I didn't look at it today, but they have been a 2.5 point underdog. Are they still a 2.5 point underdog? Mm-hmm. I don't think I've seen that in my lifetime, being an underdog to Vanderbilt. But again,
right.
It is what it is. I will ask the same question. Your thoughts on the LSU season thus far?
I think LSU is, in some ways, getting by.
Okay.
In the sense that they're obviously not playing their best ball. They're not playing their best offense, at least. The defense has been carrying in more ways than one, and they slacked off in that Ole Miss game. I saw it with my 4 eyes, y'all. But I believe that LSU is getting by. They got by Florida. Mm-hmm. They got by South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And look, those are your lower tier SEC games. But when you continue on throughout the season, you're going to see Texas A&M. You're going to see Bama at some point. You have to play your best ball. And I don't think that they came off the bye week before, they came off the bye week before they saw South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Cool, they pulled off the win. But did we really see much of a progression after that? Not really.
Right. Your thoughts?
What's interesting to me is, LSU is 5-1 and sitting in the top 10. And the whole vibe out there is less than positive, shall we say?
Right.
I mean, there are times that it's if it's I don't want to say a spoiled fan base because here's the thing, we're going to get to Tulane in a little bit and we're going to talk about the same thing.
Right.
Okay. But it's.
Is it expectations? There were a lot of expectations.
It is. No,
I
think it is.
Right.
Expectations are very high, and
right.
Obviously, look. Garrett Nussmeier has not played like we thought he could play. And I mean, they pulled out some numbers on the SEC Network broadcast the other night. Big time analytics that way over my head and my pay grade in terms of just how he's throwing the ball, basically saying something's not right. But he looked a lot better against South Carolina. The difference in that game was the inability to finish drive. You had the fumble by Juwan Johnson on the 1 yard line. You had the fumble on the goal line, which turned a probable touchdown into a field goal. This could have been, an easy LSU victory.
Right.
Okay? And then I think the perception would be a lot different right now. And you mentioned, I think I saw something a couple weeks ago. Vanderbilt hadn't been favored in an SEC game in like 6 years. Now, this is not your father's Vanderbilt.
No, it's not.
It's not, okay? Diego Pavia is the real deal.
He is.
And I'm going to be interested to see, is somebody going to take a shot on him in the NFL and try to do some things around him, because he's a winner.
Yeah.
Okay? You like guys that just win. It doesn't matter what it is they do. We've all seen it. He is a winner. He has lifted that program up. And it's, obviously, look, he's not the only one. Okay? They've got other talent around him. But that's a big, big difference out there with having him at quarterback. And, I think, obviously you've got to make him one-dimensional. Brian Kelly said as much. You've got to make him one-dimensional, and basically means you got to really stop the run on. You got to stop the run on first down. You got to make it second and long. You got to make it third and long, where Pavia has to drop back and throw the ball. Now you got to maintain your pass rush integrity when you do that, because he can put it down and go and beat you with his feet. I mean, if you go back, not this year, go back and watch last year's game against Alabama. Alabama could never get off the field. It was third and long constantly, and he kept making either the throw or the run or whatever it was, make the play to keep that drive going. Yeah, Alabama, I think, had the ball for 16 minutes in that game last year up in Nashville. So that's what you've got to watch there, is his ability to just, make plays with his feet and extend drives. Make that throw to extend a drive. You've got to, third down, first and second down are big to get you to those third down situations, but that's going to be the difference of the game.
Go ahead.
Because I want to add about Garrett Nussmeier, because after the Clemson game, now that was a big win, no doubt, but I think that sometimes we're prisoners of the moment. I think fans are for sure prisoners of the moment, because right after that, he was primed as like the favorite to win the Heisman. I'm like, Yo, it's week 1. And I mean, you know, somebody has to do it. So I guess if it was Garrett, then it was Garrett at that time. But look, I think that he's gotten better than last year for sure, but he is not playing his best brand of ball. And of course, the fallback is, does it have something to do with his torso injury?
Right.
And even like against South Carolina, yeah, he played a solid game as well, but it was still like, something's just not really there for him. And it's just so unfortunate because coming into the season, you know, LSU had so many guys, and it's like, what is going on? I think that is the frustrating part. I think to your point about the fans and other people that are questioning, you know, the less positivity of it, like, this should not be it.
Not when you spend that kind of money on a team, you know, $18 to $20 million.
Right. Talking about the red zone, of course, I failed to mention the interception at the goal line that he made as well. So that was, you know, that was 3 key mistakes inside the 10-yard line. Yeah. That, you know, could have been no telling how what the score is.
They could have blown them out. I would agree. But again, the genesis of all the issues on offense starts with the offensive line. I mean, we can debate on, again, whether they have a true SEC back or not, and thus his injury, again, how that has maybe slowed down the progress of the offense. Looks like, again, he's got the zip back on his passes, so there's some velocity there, so you feel a little bit better about that. But how do you make this offensive line better? And again, that's going to be the issue. You mentioned it. You got Texas A&M at home next week, and then you got the bye week, and then you're at Alabama. The gauntlet, you're in it now. So again, how does that offensive line get better on the fly?
I guess they just get bit on the fly. I mean, this is a new line. You had guys step up. You had your best guy in Will Campbell, you know, who was just here last week. And then you had Emory Jones as well. Like, those guys have moved on, and now you got guys that are having to step up and really just learn in the fire.
This isn't the NFL. They're paying them like the NFL, but this isn't the NFL. You can't go make a trade at the deadline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Defensively, your thoughts on the LSU defense and how they performed so far?
Yeah, just again, I believe the defense has been carrying in more ways than one. I mean, like, the game against Florida was fantastic. I believe that was like the tying record for most turnovers in program history, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, 5 turnovers, right? It's just a historic contest, and obviously a very emotional game going against Florida as well. So no, I think those newer guys, those fresher faces like Cooley, Delaney, you know, younger guys, maybe, of course, Weeks. I mean, that kind of goes without saying, but just some of those guys, Perkins, who's back now after his injury, I believe they are stepping up to the plate, but they have to be consistent, and they weren't as consistent in the Ole Miss game.
Yes.
Of course, you know, head coach Brian Kelly talked about them not playing complementary football. You saw sparks from the offense, and then the defense would kind of lack, and then vice versa. So everybody just has to play complementary as well. But the defense has been the star of the show lately, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Speaking of star, Harold Perkins playing that star spot. Right. I think that's where he needs to be.
Well, that's the key, I think, to this weekend's game.
No doubt, he's got to basically spy on Pavia.
Absolutely.
He's and that's what they. And again, I don't think they knew going into Oxford what they were going to be facing at quarterback. There was a lot of uncertainty. Right. You know, is the starter coming back? Are we going to still, you know,
But we knew both of them had mobility.
Right, no doubt. But obviously one was much more mobile than the other, and that certainly changed things a lot. Yeah. Lane Kiffin knows what he's doing, calling an offense, okay? But Perkins, in my mind, and look, on the back end, the ability to get there because the back end is covering. That's a lot of what won the Clemson game.
Yes.
Okay. You know, and you mentioned, you know, Delaney, the transfer from Virginia Tech, and some of these other guys in the secondary. You know, they are much, much better back there. There's a reason. Look, 8 interceptions leads the SEC. They're 5th in the nation in points allowed. So this is a team. You got, you know, right now, you know, you are what you basically was saying. You are what your record says you are. Well, this is about what kind of games you're playing. You're going to have to win games. You know, you're not going to win the 35-28 games. Of course, as soon as I say that now, this is, you know, it's on tape. You know, Saturday will be 30, that kind of game, right? But it
would be about time.
You've got to win. You got to win a lower scoring game, and you know, and shorten the game, and you know, try to get some things going. When talking about the offense, one of the best things they did, I thought, you know, was putting Johnson at running back. He's a guy. Seeing him play in high school, you know, and all the things you hear. Oh, he's going to play DB and stuff. when a guy has great ball skills, find a way, I'm seeing it in Lafayette right now that Lunch Winfield is taking over as the quarterback there. We saw him at Lutcher, same kind of thing. If a guy's got ball skills, put the ball in his hand, find a way to get the ball in his hand, whatever the case may be.
I agree with that, because also seeing Juwan in high school, he broke some records at quarterback position. Of course, he played defensive back as well. People know that, but they don't really, shine light on it too much. But the fact that he has those quarterback skills, able to translate them at that running back position, has been really good for LSU, especially with Durham being out for a little minute too.
Yeah. How does LSU beat Vandy this weekend?
I believe they play complementary football.
Okay.
I believe they use their pieces as well. They just have to be able to, first of all, run the ball. I think that goes without saying. But I believe they have to use those pieces that are out there. You got Barry and Brown. You got Aaron Anderson, I believe, might be back. And just being able to use those pieces, I think they're just lacking at that.
I think Alabama in the second half in Tuscaloosa showed a lot of what it takes to be able to manage that. And a lot of that is, like I said, you got to shorten the game. You've got to be able to run the football. The best way to stop Pavia is to have him standing on the sideline.
That's right.
And that's where it starts.
Right. Well, speaking of shortening the game, Tulane's got to shorten. I hope that the game's not being shortened this weekend. They take on Army. Tulane is 5-1, 2-0. Army 3-3, 2-2. Don't let that record fool you, though. Early start at Yeoman for Tulane. Both LSU and Tulane at 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. Again, on the ticket, you can catch a 10 o'clock pregame, 11 o'clock kickoff on the ticket, and of course they'll be on ESPNU as well. Tulane has 18 votes in the AP, puts them at 32nd, 31 votes in the coaches poll. 31st in the coaches poll with 17 votes. All right, guys. Army. We saw what Army did to them last year in the championship game. Now, again, you got to throw that out a bit because everything was going on with the program at that time. But again, it's going to come down to, playing disciplined football on the defensive side. You have to be able to stop that triple option. Talk a little bit about Army and Tulane. Yeah,
that's what Summerall had talked about earlier this week. He says that they run a mash by you offense, but also half of their explosive plays are pass plays as well. So they just have to be, the defense has to be ready for whatever Army throws at them. But what he also emphasized was the fact that that Army team, as well as Tulane, is not the same team. They've just had so much turnover. They don't have the same guys. Tulane only has 5 returning starters back. They do have guys that have played, a notable amount of minutes as well. But being able to be on top of that will be key for them as well. I believe Tulane's defense has been playing pretty good as well, especially their secondary. Yeah. So being aware of whatever they do offensively, or whatever Army does offensively, will be key for them.
Yeah, what scares me a little bit is, again, they've been an undisciplined team this year. The penalties have really hurt them a lot. And again, if Army gets a long drive going, they can take up a lot of time off the clock. If you've ever been a disciplined team, you got to be a disciplined team this weekend.
You saw it with ECU, for sure.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and look, that game last Thursday night was crazy, and it, you and I have been around this a while. Tulane loses that game 99 times out of 100 in the past. With everything that with the penalties, Steve Barrios brought it up on the radio last Thursday night. You don't see 2 chop block penalties in a year. Tulane got called for 2 on the same drive. Right. They got backed up. But all of the 6 trips to the red zone, you kick. You're kicking field goals. You're fumbling inside the 5-yard line. You finally score a touchdown with 30 seconds left, and they're getting criticized for that. Why didn't you just run the clock out and kick a field goal? Because, I think a lot of it was you needed to show you could score a touchdown down there. But too many things can go wrong. Just go score, and it's like John Summerall said, you got 30 seconds to keep them from going the length of the field. If you can't do that, you don't deserve to win the game. And look, they've obviously got to play more disciplined, and that's obviously when you're playing a team, any of the academies, you're going to face a team that is very disciplined. But the biggest thing to remember is this: when you're playing that option, it's a totally different mentality on defense from what you're doing the other 11 games of the year. You've got to play assignment football. You can't deviate from your assignment. You can't give up your spot to go do whatever, because when that happens, somebody's going to the house.
Right. Which, as much as I love this Tulane team, what Summerall's done, That's the one thing that scares you about this game, because you are who you are by 6 games into the season, and you're an undisciplined team. Now again, can they grow? This is a week where you have to be disciplined on both sides of the ball. If Army gets on long drives and again they start taking time off the clock and they score, then again you're going to have to come back. You can't have the mistakes that are going to set you back. This is a huge game to be able to show again if Tulane is really a legitimate team to be in the mix for the college football playoff.
Well, and you've got to. Here's the thing: you got to win the league, okay? And so that means you can't miss inside of the conference. And obviously, you can go circle a game in 3 weeks at Memphis, because that may decide everything. Oh, by the way, Memphis has South Florida at home next Saturday. Watch for that. While Tulane's off, all those Tulane fans next Saturday, you'll be tuned into Memphis, South Florida next Saturday.
And I would say the same thing about the Saints. Look, you cannot just rely on special teams. You can't rely on the kicks. Summerall says, look, field goals are not going to win us this game.
No, right. So. Absolutely. Tulane Army, your thoughts?
I have Tulane. I have Tulane in this one. I believe, look, despite the fact that a lot of those players from last year are not a part of this team, I believe they are still coming in with the chip on their shoulder, despite what Summerall says. I believe they know the history of it. They know how big it was. Even to the Memphis game, they know. I don't know what happened. Tulane just, and you hope that doesn't happen in this game as well.
Yeah.
I think Tulane wins the game. It'll be a struggle from the standpoint, like you said. Each team might only get 7-8 possessions. Yeah. So that in its own right will keep it close. But I think East Carolina, from the standpoint of red zone performance, might have just been an anomaly. Yeah. If they're able to finish drives, then this is it's a totally different ball game. Not unlike we talked about with LSU South Carolina, and you're feeling a little bit differently. But I think they will finish drives this week and take care of business.
Yeah, we know again that the triple option is going to be an issue. But they play assignment football. They're going to be able to handle that. But you're going to get 60 minutes out of a service academy. Yeah. Those guys are not going to quit.
And one thing to remember is, as Coach Summerall made the point on Tuesday at his press conference, his defensive coordinator, Greg Gasparotto, was the defensive coordinator at West Point. So if anybody understands what it takes to defend that offense, it's him.
That's a great point, no doubt about it. All right, let's talk some Pelicans. First, there's bad news. We were hoping again that on the 22nd of October at the FedEx Forum in Memphis that we see the full complement of Pelicans. Unfortunately, Kevon Looney has a knee injury, a strained ligament. They're saying they're going to evaluate him in 2 to 3 weeks. It's probably at least a month injury, depending on again how quickly he heals. So again, you will not have Looney again to start the season. But there is a air of optimism for the Pelicans this season, based on, again, the way that Zion looks in his physical shape, the way he has been playing in the preseason. Your thoughts on the Pels?
It's always something. That's my immediate thought, is that it's just always something. Seeing that notification, I said, man, just...
So did I. Again?
Again and again and again. I guess the upside to it is that it happened early enough. So whenever they do reevaluate, hopefully it's a better update. The downside is, yes, we won't see them in full effect by then. But yes, Zion has been playing pretty well. And also, I know we talked about this off camera, like Nisi, he's growing as well.
Yes.
So same thing with the Pels. You just have to wait and see. You hope that, one, they stay healthy. You hope that they play complementary. I like Looney. I like the addition of Poole as well.
Me too.
You get some championship pieces in there and some more veterans. They're young, but still, they have experience. It'll be pretty interesting to see how they mesh.
I'm anxious to see things get rolling, certainly, and obviously Zion looks significantly different
and looks focused too.
He does. Yeah. I think Joe Dumars has been a terrific influence on him.
I agree with that.
And and that's all you can ask for. I mean, obviously we've seen when he is healthy and when he is focused. I mean, he is obviously as talented a player as there is in the NBA.
There's no doubt.
And it's a matter of just putting the compliments around him. That give you the chance. Look, you don't win with 5 players. You've got to be deeper than that.
Right.
And I think that's a point that Dumars has made on more than one occasion here in the offseason about just trying to build an entire.
Do you think he's built some quality depth here? Because it looks on paper they look like they have quality depth.
I think so. I was maybe a little bit concerned with fears in terms of some of the things that maybe you saw in the summer league, and hey, here's a guy. What kind of shot does he have? And then you watch Tuesday night in Birmingham.
Right.
I mean, he led a fourth quarter comeback basically single-handedly. Very nearly pulled. Now I understand it's preseason.
Doesn't seem like the one was too big for him though.
No, not at all.
Right.
Not at all. And remember, he just turned 19 years old.
Right.
Yeah, just turned 19.
Yeah. So it's that's encouraging.
I just worry about his size right now, playing with men.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that next year, once he gets in the weight room, he's going to be better, but you love the raw talent.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're also not asking him to play 35 minutes a night either. You're going to ask him to play what? Probably, 20 or whatever it is. And you're going to, obviously your rotations are going to change along the way, and you're going to see what's, who's going to fit better with whom. One of the things we were talking with Misi at the center spot, I mean, I like his ability as a rim protector, and
Me too.
I think you're going to need that. I mean, there's time, I think this team has some definite offensive skill sets. I'm a little bit concerned about maybe, how some of these guys guard on the perimeter.
Yeah.
But if you've got a guy like Misi waiting there on the back end, that can help.
Right.
I like what you said about Dumars being a good influence for Zion, because what stood out to me a couple weeks ago at Media Day was he was saying that he practices how Dumars plays, and obviously, practice how you want to play, right?
Yes.
But I believe that's going to be a pretty good influence for him too. And if you continue to see it this early, you hope to see it through the rest of the season too.
Well, I mean, it just comes down to him staying healthy.
Yeah.
And again, he's dropped the weight. He looks like he stayed in shape through the off season. So again, that's a plus. It shows that again he's growing as a man and growing as a player. Another guy that's got to take the next step, again, there's got to be is the second half of that duo, and that is Trey Murphy.
Yeah.
He's again, we're seeing him get to the rim more. We know he can knock down the shot, but again, if he can be a guy that can get to the rim off the dribble, that makes him that much more dangerous.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Another young guy that has to step up, and even his leadership skills as well. But I believe with, again, the addition of Looney, Jordan Poole, apparently him and Jordan Poole are actually like pretty good friends.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
It's kind of like birds of a feather flock together type situation. Hopefully, they'll feed off each other and whatever that looks like for them. And Trey Murphy elevates in this season.
Right. And at some point, Murray's coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is going to make you that much better.
But I think Murphy's got a chance to maybe have a breakout all-star type of season. I think that's you see that it's got to get there. It's like that. The light at the end of the tunnel. You hope it's not an oncoming train. I think this is really a light at the end of the tunnel.
But Bi's gone now, so it's his spot. It is tailor-made for him to move into that again, that complementary player to Zion on the court. So you would think that he's going to be the number 2 guy there right now.
No doubt.
All right. How do you think the Pels fare this year? Are they a playoff team, play-in team, or are they back in the lottery?
I might give them play-in.
Okay.
Play-in.
The West is so doggone good.
It is.
I mean, you think it's taken 48, 49 wins to get above that. I don't know if this is a 49-win team. I could see it being a 40 to 45-win team, and ideally that's playing level. Let's roll a dice on a couple of games there and see what happens.
I think at minimum they're a playing team. I really believe that Zion's going to have a breakout year. I think he's got a lot to prove. I think again Dumars being here, as you mentioned, the influence there, and again Willie Green's got to make sure this team plays well, because I don't know how short the leash is on Willie Green. If you look at the history of Joe Dumars, he's not patient with coaches. So again, there's a lot of factors there, but I think they're at least a play-in team at the minimum.
For sure.
I don't think they're a lottery team this year.
I don't think they have a choice but to get it together.
I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
So again, hopefully, again, we'll see that come to fruition. Megan, thanks so much for joining us for your first time on the program. Lenny, as always, thanks for joining us on the show, and we very much appreciate both you guys coming down today.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for tuning in. There's a QR code on your screen that will take you to my website, ericasher.com, or the WLAE-TV YouTube channel. There are so many ways to catch our program now. WLAE-TV, WLAE-TV2, Pelican Sports Network. Set your DVR, you'll never miss the show. You catch me on the radio, 106.7 The Ticket, 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also the Ticket website, the Ticket 1067theticket.com. iHeartRadio app, TuneIn Radio. We have a app. 1067 The Ticket app that you can utilize as well. So there's a lot of ways to catch the program. Make sure you're checking out 1067 The Ticket. Also, again, want to thank the underwriters who make our show possible. Please support our underwriters, the reason why we're on the air. Again, And also want to thank our folks here at WLAE-TV who produce our program, do an excellent job of doing that each and every week. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Alex Chacon, best director on the planet, William Hill. I'm Eric Asher. Thanks to, again, Meagan Glover and also Lenny Vangilder. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks for watching.
Hey, I'm Keith Spiro from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. My guest this week on Let's Talk is artist James Michalopoulos. James, you paint a lot of buildings, you paint a lot of musicians, you also paint the occasional cow. How is a cow as sitting for a painting? Are they patient?
They are sometimes dismissive and critical. They're irritated or whatever. You just treat them delicately and move on.
We'll have those and other insights on painting difficult subjects from James Michalopoulos this week on Let's Talk.
It's Kyle's last spin on his turntable.
Yeah.
And the first day of Kira's new career in IT. When you donate to Goodwill, you help provide skills training and career placement. And the things you love start a new life too.
Our mission is local and global. We're constantly developing newer therapies for rare pediatric cancer. And we share our information globally, and that's the hallmark of St. Jude.
We're local and enlightening. You're watching WLAE-TV, celebrating 40 years of New Orleans public television.